For the three child actors, Gary Coleman, Todd Bridges, and Dana Plato, veterans all, it seemed wonderful. The show was a hit, and they were stars.
This just in, the FBI says it will not rest until every member of the Different Strokes cast is behind bars.
Now they are skewered by comics and the subject of news stories. Their plight is called the curse of Different Strokes. For the maturing but often ill comic genius, Gary Coleman, life was anything but laughs. Finding acting jobs that weren't children's roles or those that demanded short people proved almost impossible. He moved from Hollywood to Denver to Phoenix, fired his manager and sued his parents for allegedly stealing more than $1 million. She was arrested in Las Vegas in February on charges of holding up this video store for $160 with a pellet gun. As for Todd Bridges, Arnold's older brother on Different Strokes, his serious bouts with the law began way back in 1983 when he was arrested for carrying a concealed .45 caliber handgun in his car. In his most infamous case, he was charged with an attempted murder, but was acquitted.
Mom, what are you going to make with the Jell-O?
Todd Bridges began acting at a very early age with his mother in this Jell-O commercial. What did you think the business was?
I thought the business was something wonderful. I mean, I still think it's something wonderful, but I thought it was a little more different than the way that I've seen it today.
When did it start to go sour for you?
Well, it's when I lost my self-esteem and I lost my dignity inside of myself, and I lost my, virtually, I lost myself.
So how'd you respond to it?
I responded to it very negatively, evidently. I ended up getting myself in a little bit of trouble.
You want to detail it?
Well, in trouble by using drugs and doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. That's about it. That's the only crime I've ever really committed was using drugs.
It's not the only crime of which you've been charged.
Well, of course not, but that can happen to anybody. That's something that can happen.
Happen to anybody?
Sure, the wrong place at the wrong time.
Aggravated assault? Assault with a deadly weapon?
Well,
drug charges? Happen to anybody?
Yeah, but see, charges and convictions are two different things, Brian. Remember that. Anybody can be charged with things, but if you committed the crime, you'll be convicted. And I haven't been convicted.
Why was Todd Bridges charged then? Why were you singled out?
I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
No fault of your own?
Yeah, but the only fault I had was using drugs. That's a big fault.
Do you blame drugs for all of that? How much responsibility lies at your door, Todd?
Mine, all that. Using drugs lies at my door. That's the mistake that I made.
Period.
Period.
No other one?
No, it's no one else's fault either but mine. I can accept that. It's not a hard thing not to accept.
What do you think about this idea of the Different Strokes curse?
I think that's the biggest hoax I've ever heard. I think that you just have three people who gotten themselves in a little bit of trouble. Some was on purpose and some of us wasn't. And, it's just something that happens.
You keep dismissing this little bit of trouble like it's a part of growing up.
Of course it's a part of growing up. You didn't tell me you never got yourself in a little bit of trouble?
I must say I've never been behind bars. How many days did you spend there?
I spent 9 months because my bail was $2.5 million. That's the only reason why.
Dana Plato got herself arrested. I'm not necessarily sure most girls have.
Oh, a lot of girls have gotten themselves arrested for odds and ends. Wait, whether or not...
Gary Coleman winds up living in the desert. I doubt if that's a normal pattern for...
How is that not a normal pattern? Haven't you had controversy? I mean, I remember where you wanted too much money. Or I remember where I can go into your history, too. You can't always believe what you read or what you hear.
But none of which, Todd, was an illegality or wound up being charged in a courtroom.
You're right. But these are the kind of things that happen. Certain people get certain problems. That's what happens.
Are you telling me that the experience of Todd Bridges, Dana Plato, and Gary Coleman were the course of natural maturation, nothing out of the ordinary?
I don't feel that it's out of the ordinary, but I feel it's something that it strikes adolescents like it did. We were adolescents at the time as all this struck, so that's what happens.
You don't think in any way television played a part in that, or being famous played a part in that, or having X amount of dollars early in life played a part of that, or the pressures of the business played a part of that?
Well, I feel maybe a small point of the pressures of the business could have played a part of that, but I don't feel that it's anything out of the ordinary. I mean, there's a lot of kids out there who are going through the same problems right now. And like I told you, it depends on what we do with it. If I would continue to do it, then that would be bad, but I'm not continuing to do that. I haven't even been anywhere near in trouble for a year and a half, and I don't plan on ever getting in trouble again, you know? Thanks to God.
Would the things that have happened to Todd Bridges have happened if you'd have just been a normal high schooler?
I think so. Only because, for the very simple reason, God has everything in program for people. Now I can go out today and go to these schools more or less than Brian Gumbel. You can go to these schools, but these kids will look at you and say, Brian Gumbel, he's a square. Brian Gumbel's never been in trouble. Brian Gumbel doesn't understand what we're going through.
And so Todd Bridges is hip because he's been in jail?
No, Todd Bridges is hip because he understands what's going on. So he can tell them how not to go to jail, to prevent these things from happening.
Why? You tell me how Todd Bridges' life relates to most of those kids. Most of those kids never saw the kind of money you did. Most of those kids never experienced fame.
Let me explain to you how it relates. A lot of kids in high school today have to deal with drug dealers, have to deal with drug abuse, have to deal with dysfunctional families, has to deal with people on the street who condemn them because they feel that they're not worthy of anything, so they have low self-esteem. Because it affected me, I'm able to now go to these kids and say, hey, look, it happens to everybody. You can be on top of the world and lose everything, but you can come back for it. The best success is a great recovery.
Todd, you ever going to get your image back? I mean, for whatever, let me ask you, no, don't say well, for however much you may clean up your life, there is a certain image that persists about Todd Bridges. And those things are harder to rectify sometimes than just cleaning up your act.
I understand that, but whether or not, it's not whether I'm going to go out there and clean up my image, is that I want people to see that I'm a sober and I'm a sane mind now, and I can handle my own affairs. Now, whether it's accepted, hey, if it's accepted, it's great. If it's not, I'm not going to cry about it. But I'm doing the best I can, and that's all I can do. No one can ask any more from me or any less.